When my sister vanished. After years of estrangement, a woman uncovers the shocking truth behind her sister's mysterious disappearance and why the family kept it quiet. The last time I saw my sister was on a rainy Tuesday in March, 12 years ago. She stood under the flickering porch light, her duffel bag slung over one shoulder, soaked jeans clinging to her legs. I remember how she didn't say goodbye, just gave me a look I couldn't read and stepped into the back seat of a car I didn't recognize. Her name was Hannah, my only sibling, my best friend, once. We weren't talking much by then, not because of a big fight, but because the distance had settled in like dust, quiet, thick, and impossible to clean. She was always a storm. Loud opinions, shifting moods, secrets she thought she hid well. And I was the calm, the steady one. The one who kept the peace when the family dinners got too loud or when Dad's temper flared. That night, no one said much about her leaving. My parents told neighbors she'd gone off to a yoga retreat in Arizona, that she needed time to clear her head. But I knew better. Hannah didn't do yoga, and she hated Arizona. Over the years, I asked questions. Got shut down. My mother would get this stiff look, like her face was made of porcelain, and change the subject. My father just mumbled something about how Hannah always had to make things difficult. For a long time, I believed maybe she had run away. Maybe she didn't want us anymore. Then 2 months ago, I got a call. It was a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring into voicemail, but when I played it back, I dropped the glass I was holding. The voice was raspy, older, tired, but it was her. Hey, Katie, if this is still your number, I need you. Please don't hang up. I'm sorry. I didn't have a choice back then. But now, I need you to come find me. Please. Then silence. 12 years. No word. No postcard. No email. And now this. I called back a dozen times. No answer. Just voicemail. The number was registered to a burner. The police didn't take it seriously. Adults disappear all the time, the detective told me. Doesn't mean they're in danger. But something in her voice. It wasn't just regret. It was fear. So I did what I always do when the world stops making sense. I dug. And what I found cracked everything I thought I knew about my family. Because Hannah hadn't just vanished. She'd been erased. The voicemail haunted me. I played it over and over, parsing every syllable for clues. I even saved it to 3 different drives, afraid it might vanish like she had. Her voice trembled, not like someone making amends, but like someone being hunted. I started at home, back where it all began. My parents still lived in that same 2-story colonial, the one with the cracked walkway and the rose bushes my mom babied like children. When I pulled into the driveway, nothing had changed. Same ceramic frog by the porch. Same faded welcome mat. But something felt wrong, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Mom opened the door with her usual tight smile. Katie, what a surprise. You should have called. I did, I said. 3 times. She ignored that, stepping aside. Well, you're here now. Come in. Inside, everything smelled like lemon polish and old secrets. Dad was in the recliner, TV remote resting on his stomach, his eyes dull like he'd stopped really seeing years ago. He gave a grunt of recognition. Katie. Hi, Dad. We made small talk. Coffee was offered. Declined. I kept glancing at the stairs, toward what used to be Hannah's room. The door was closed. Always closed. So, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I got a call. From Hannah. The temperature dropped 5 degrees. My mom froze, the spoon in her hand hovering over the sugar bowl. My dad's remote hit the floor. What did you say? Mom whispered. She left a voicemail. Said she needed help. That she didn't have a choice back then. Dad leaned forward slowly. That's not funny, Katie. I'm not joking. She's dead, Mom said flatly. You know that? No, I said, standing up. I don't know that. Because you never told me what happened. One day she was here, and the next, she wasn't. All you ever said was that she left. She did leave, Mom snapped. She ran off. She wanted nothing to do with us. But why? What happened that night? A long silence filled the room. Mom sat down slowly, rubbing her temples. She was sick, she said finally. Not in the way you think. Hannah, she was unstable. She'd been seeing things, hearing voices. She wasn't safe. For herself. Or for anyone else. That's a lie, I said. She tried to hurt herself, Katie. Twice. The second time, she blamed us. Said we were the ones making her sick. Dad spoke for the first time, his voice hoarse. We sent her to a private facility. Off the books. somewhere they could help her quietly. She was angry, told us we'd regret it. I stared at them, my heart racing. Where? They didn't answer. She called me, I said. She's alive. You lied to me for 12 years. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We did what we thought was best. No apology. Just that. I left without another word. That night, I called every psychiatric facility in the state. Then the next state. Then another. I used aliases. I pretended to be a caseworker, a concerned relative, even a private investigator. Nothing. No record of a Hannah Ellison. But I wasn't giving up. Not now. Not after her voice had cracked through the silence. Because if my family had sent her away, if they had locked her up to protect their image, to hide her like some dirty secret, then I was going to find her and bring her home. I started with the attic. It wasn't some big moment of revelation. It just hit me. If they erased her from everything else, maybe something got left behind up there. Something they missed. Our attic was the same dust-choked crawlspace it had always been, filled with old trophies, boxes of holiday lights, and bins marked taxes 89 to 95. Halfway through digging, I found a shoebox tucked behind a broken lamp. It was Hannah's. I knew it by the stickers, tiny stars and moons and one warped dolphin. Inside were scraps of paper, a faded friendship bracelet, and a few blurry Polaroids. Nothing monumental. But it was something. The last layer of her that hadn't been scrubbed clean. There was a receipt folded 4 times into a tight square. A bus ticket, one way, dated exactly 1 day before she disappeared. Departure, St. James Transit Center. Destination, unknown. The location had been smeared beyond legibility, probably water damage, maybe tears. I drove there the next day. The St. James Transit Center was more of a glorified parking lot than a hub. Half the kiosks were busted, the other half manned by retirees who barely looked up from their crossword puzzles. I walked up to a guy with a ponytail and asked about archived passenger lists. Not public info, he muttered. I slid a $100 bill across the counter. He looked up. What name? Hannah Ellison. March 12th, 12 years ago. He whistled low. You're reaching back. I'm serious. He eyed the cash, then disappeared behind a curtain. 5 minutes later, he came back with a clipboard and a shrug. Only thing we got from that date. No names listed, just this. He handed me a thin piece of paper. It was a maintenance report from a breakdown that delayed the 10:45 p.m. route. The bus had to make an unscheduled stop in a rural area called Devlin's Creek. Population maybe 300, if you counted the cows. I remembered the name from when I was a kid. Dad used to hunt near there. Said it was the kind of place where people didn't lock their doors and everybody knew each other's dogs by name. I made the drive on a foggy Friday morning, engine humming over cracked asphalt and moss-covered signs. Devlin's Creek wasn't on most maps. It was the kind of town you only find by accident or because you were running from something. There was a diner, a hardware store, and a church so old it leaned like it had secrets. I parked outside the diner and walked in, Hannah's picture in my jacket pocket. The place smelled like bacon grease and would smoke. A woman behind the counter looked up, squinted. Help you, honey? I pulled out the photo. I'm looking for my sister. She may have passed through here years ago. Her name's Hannah. She stared at the picture for a long time. Too long. Then she said, don't know her, and turned away. But I saw it in her eyes. She did know. I left a 20 on the counter and walked out, pretending not to notice the curtains shifting in the windows across the street. They were watching me. That night, I checked into a motel on the edge of town, only one room available, naturally, and laid Hannah's picture on the nightstand. Her eyes stared back at me, full of that wild spark I remembered. And I wondered, had she ever really left this place? Or had she been swallowed by it? Sleep didn't come easy that night. The motel room had that damp, moldy smell that reminded me of basements and broken promises. I kept the lamp on, half expecting someone to knock or worse, just let themselves in. Devlin's Creek had a quiet that wasn't peaceful. It was suspicious. Too controlled. Like the whole town had agreed on something dark and never spoke of it again. Morning brought gray skies and the sound of bells, soft, distant, rhythmic. I followed them. The church was easy to find. White paint peeled from the steeple, and the windows were stained with more grime than glass. But it was full. Packed. I stood in the back, unnoticed, as the congregation swayed to a hymn I didn't recognize. The preacher was an old man with a voice like gravel and fire. He talked about sins and secrets. About broken spirits needing discipline. The crowd nodded like they'd heard it all before. After the service, I approached him. "Excuse me, sir," I said. holding up Hannah's picture. I'm looking for my sister. She might have come through here years ago. His eyes barely touched the photo before he shook his head. A lot of folks pass through. Not all of them stay. She might have stayed, I said carefully. She was troubled, vulnerable. He smiled. Not kindly. We help the lost, but only those who want saving. I felt a cold hand crawl up my spine. If she did stay, is she still here? The smile faded. Sometimes, people don't want to be found. Then he walked away. I stood there, watching his congregation trickle past me, faces down, eyes averted, silent as ghosts. Something about this place was off. Too clean, too well-behaved. Like fear had been baked into the bricks. I circled the building, checking for anything, a plaque, a sign, a name. Nothing. But behind the church was a fenced-in garden, neat rows of vegetables, a shed, and a second building I hadn't noticed before. A converted barn, maybe. No windows. Just a thick padlock and a hand-painted sign, staff only. I tried the gate. Locked. That night, I returned with bolt cutters I'd picked up from the hardware store. I waited until the town was asleep, which, in Devlin's Creek, happened before 9 p.m. The gate gave with a loud snap. I crept past the garden, past the shed, to the door of the locked barn. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. I cut the padlock. The door groaned open on rusted hinges. The smell hit me first, mildew and bleach and something else. Like old sweat. Or fear. Inside were rows of beds. Cots, really. Bare, military style. A few plastic chairs. Metal cabinets with names taped on them. I flipped through them one by one. And then I saw it. A folder. Labeled H.E. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were intake forms, religious rehab. No date of release. No forwarding address. Just 3 words at the bottom. Non-compliant. Relocated quietly. I took pictures of everything. Every form, every signature, every chilling phrase. And then I ran. Back at the motel, I zoomed in on one of the pages. A contact number. Not local. An area code from the next state over. I dialed, hand trembling. New Haven Restoration Center, a voice answered. I asked about the file. About Hannah. The woman paused. Who's calling? I'm her sister. Another pause. Then, quietly, she's not here anymore. Where is she? Click. Dial tone. They knew. They all knew. I drove through the night. The road from Devlin's Creek to the address tied to that phone number was nothing but empty fields and the occasional gas station where the coffee tasted like burnt rubber. By dawn, I reached New Haven Restoration Center, if you could call it that. It wasn't a hospital. Not even close. It was a fenced compound, set back behind a row of dying pine trees. Cameras on the corners. No sign out front. Just a gravel path and a metal gate. The building was a converted lodge, stone and wood, 2 stories tall, with windows so heavily tinted you couldn't see inside. I parked across the street and waited. People came and went, but not many. A few nurses in pale uniforms. One van with blacked-out windows. And a man in a suit who looked like he had the spine of a snake. I knew I wasn't getting in the front door. So I waited until nightfall. There was a narrow trail through the woods behind the building. I followed it until I reached the rear-loading dock. No cameras, just a busted latch. I slipped inside. The hallway was dim, lined with locked doors and that same sterile smell, antiseptic and sadness. I moved fast, ducking when I heard footsteps, pausing when I heard voices. I checked every unlocked door. Then I found the records room. The file cabinet stretched wall to wall. Alphabetized. Efficient. Like they'd practiced hiding people. I found Hannah's file again. But this one was thicker. Dozens of pages. Incident reports. Notes from counselors. Most of it in legal jargon or vague religious code, spiritual resistance, emotional regression, unsanctioned correspondence. There were warnings. And then a transfer form. She'd been moved. To another facility. Same parent organization. Different state. I was about to take pictures when I saw it. Stuffed in the back of the folder. A red leather journal. I recognized it instantly. It was Hannah's. I opened to the first page. Her handwriting, messy, urgent, alive. If anyone ever finds this, I didn't disappear. I was taken. They called it treatment. Said I needed to be fixed. But all they did was try to erase me. Please, don't let them lie. Please find Katie. My name. The pages after were half-written thoughts, sketches, poems. Descriptions of locked rooms, of cleansings, of long hours sitting in darkness being told she was broken. She wrote about another girl named Elise who tried to escape, who didn't make it. The last entry was dated 10 years ago. They're moving me again, somewhere more secure. I think they know I've been writing. I'm scared, Katie. If you ever get this, please don't believe what they tell you. Find the truth, whatever it costs. I snapped photos of every page, heart pounding. Then I heard footsteps. Closer. Heavy. I barely had time to hide behind a cabinet before 2 men walked in. Orderlies. Laughing. One of them dropped a clipboard. The other opened a drawer. I held my breath so long I saw stars. They left 5 minutes later. I waited 10. Then I ran. Back through the hallway. Out the loading dock. Into the woods. I didn't stop until I hit my car. And when I looked back at that building, I realized the truth. Hannah didn't run away. She was buried, alive, in layers of silence, paperwork, and shame. But now I had her voice again. And I wasn't going to let it be silenced twice. The journal changed everything. It wasn't just a clue. It was a map. A cry for help, etched in ink, bleeding through every page. I couldn't sleep after reading it. Not because of what it said, but because of what it meant. Hannah hadn't just vanished. She'd been locked away, passed around between institutions like some lost file in a broken system. And now, if she was still alive, she could be anywhere. I started digging into the organization that ran the New Haven Center. They were called the Halcyon Network, an umbrella nonprofit with branches across 5 states. On paper, they specialized in faith-based recovery services. Off the record, they were something else entirely. I found lawsuits, sealed ones. Allegations of abuse, coercion, isolation. Most never made it past depositions. Families too scared to speak. Victims too damaged to fight. But there was one name that popped up twice. Caleb R. Hastings. He used to be a counselor at Halcyon's Restoration Branch in Idaho. Got quietly let go after a girl went missing under his supervision. Never charged. Never arrested. Just moved. The most recent address I could find was a rural town outside Boise. I called in sick, packed a bag, and booked a flight the same day. Hastings lived in a trailer home parked at the edge of a dead-end dirt road. There were wind chimes on the porch and a giant American flag over the window. It looked peaceful. It wasn't. I waited until dusk, then knocked. He answered in a tank top, beer in hand, and a burn scar curling across the side of his neck like melted wax. His eyes were sharp. Too sharp. "Yeah, I'm looking for someone," I said, holding up a photo of Hannah. "She was in one of your programs." His eyes flicked to the picture, then back to me. "Don't know her." "I think you do," I said, keeping my voice steady. "She mentioned you in her journal." He stiffened. "Just slightly. But I saw it. Get off my property. She called you a monster. Said you locked her in a basement. Told her she was evil. That she needed to be broken." He didn't move. Just looked at me like I was a dog barking at a ghost. "You got no idea what you're playing with," he said, voice low. "Then explain it to me. You think you're going to save her?" he asked, stepping closer. "You think you're the first? Some of them don't want to be saved. Some of them need that place. It gives them purpose. She's my sister." He smiled. Not kindly. "Then maybe you should have done a better job protecting her." That was it. I walked away, pulse pounding, fist clenched. I half expected him to follow. But he didn't. Back in my rental car, I checked my phone. The camera had been recording the whole time, audio clear. His voice, the threat, the acknowledgement. I had something. But I also had a new lead. Because when I reviewed the journal again, something clicked. In one entry, Hannah wrote, "They said I'd be going to the river house, where the quiet ones stay. Hastings says I'll like it there. Says no one ever leaves, but it's peaceful." I'd skimmed past it before. But now, the river house. I ran a search. There was a property, an old monastery, on the edge of a riverbank 3 counties over, bought by a Halcyon affiliate. No public records. No photos. But it had a nickname in the forums I found later that night. The house where time stops. I booked another flight. Because if Hannah was there, I was going to bring her back. The plane touched down in Oregon under a sky bruised with storm clouds. Rain fell sideways. Angry, slanting sheets of it that pounded the windshield of my rental car as I drove deeper into the woods. Every mile closer to the river house felt like a descent into somewhere unholy. The road narrowed into gravel. Then gravel turned into mud. No signs. No GPS. Just a printed map from an online forum post written by someone who claimed to have escaped. They said the house had no address. Just a gate with a symbol burned into it, and I inside a circle. No welcome. No warnings. Just silence. They were right. I found the gate by accident. Hidden behind a wall of pine trees, rusted shut, vines choking the bars. The symbol was there, same as in Hannah's journal. I stopped the car and got out, boots sinking in the mud. I climbed over, heart pounding, and followed the path. The river house wasn't a house. It was a fortress. Stone walls 3 stories high, with spires like a cathedral. Windows narrow, barred. The only sound was the river nearby, rushing, cold, endless. The building hunched against the earth like it didn't want to be seen. I crept around the side, looking for another way in. Found a broken panel near the laundry vent. Crawled through. Inside was colder than outside. The walls were stone. The floor was bare. Long hallways stretched in every direction. Every 10 feet, a camera. Every 20, a cross nailed to the wall. I moved like a shadow, hugging corners, ducking under beams. I passed locked doors. Whispered prayers. Soft sobs. And then I found her. Not Hannah. Elise. The girl from the journal. She was older now, maybe mid-20s, her hair cropped short, her wrist scarred. She was mopping the hallway, eyes down. I almost didn't recognize her until I saw the name on her shirt. Elise, I whispered. She froze, then looked at me slowly, like she didn't trust her eyes. Do I know you? She asked. I'm Hannah's sister. She dropped the mop. I pulled out a photo. She mentioned you. In this journal. Elise grabbed the photo like it might vanish. Her hands trembled. She's alive. I don't know. I think so. I think she's here. She shook her head, backing away. You need to leave. Not without her. You don't get it. No one leaves the river house. Not unless they're carried out. Elise, please. Just tell me where she is. A long pause. Then she whispered, top floor. Room 307. But it's not locked from the inside. It's locked from the hall. And there's a watcher. What kind of watcher? Elise looked me dead in the eye. The kind that smiles while you scream. I crept up the staircase like it might snap beneath me. Each step moaned under my boots, but the river house didn't wake. It was the kind of place that stayed quiet no matter what you did. Like the walls had been trained to keep secrets. The top floor smelled of iron and mildew. There were no cameras here. Just rows of doors with numbers etched in faded gold. Room 307 sat at the far end, behind a thick metal door with no knob, no window, just a single slot at eye level. It looked more like a prison cell than a room for recovery. I waited, listened. Nothing. Then I bent down and whispered through the slot. Hannah? Can you hear me? Silence. Then, like a breath, a voice so soft I almost missed it. Katie? I nearly collapsed. Oh my God, I whispered. Hannah. It's me. I'm here. A soft sound came through the slot. Could have been a sob. Could have been a laugh. I thought I imagined you. They said you stopped looking. I never stopped. I've been trying to find you for years. Her voice cracked. They told me you moved on. That you believed them. Don't listen to them. I've seen the files. I read your journal. I know what they did. Then you know why I can't leave, she said. You can. Tonight. Right now. Elise told me where you were. A pause. Elise is alive? Yes. She's terrified, but she's still here. Another sob. This one I was sure of. I glanced around the hallway. No footsteps. No signs of the watcher Elise warned me about. Hannah, how do I open this door? They have a key ring. 2 of them. One with the night staff. The other, the watcher. Where's he? She didn't answer. Hannah. Then I heard it. A faint clicking sound behind me. Like boots on stone. I turned. He stood at the end of the hall. Tall. Pale. Dressed in gray from head to toe. His mouth was smiling, but his eyes weren't. You're not staff, he said. I didn't move. My hand slid into my coat pocket where I'd hidden the pocket knife. I'm family, I said. That doesn't make you welcome. He walked slowly, deliberately. I backed away, putting myself between him and Hannah's door. I'm taking her home. He stopped 3 feet from me. She's not ready. She's a danger. To herself. To others. She's my sister. His hand moved toward his belt, toward the keys. And I moved first. I lunged. The knife didn't do much, just tore the fabric across his arm. But it startled him. He swung back, fast, clipped my jaw, and I hit the wall hard. He reached for the keys. But then the door beside us opened. Elise. She held a fire extinguisher, and she swung it with everything she had. The watcher dropped. Unconscious. I gasped, tasted blood. Elise handed me the keys. Go. I found the right one on the 3rd try. Room 307 opened with a hiss. And there she was. Thin. Pale. Her eyes ringed with shadow. But Hannah, my sister, she stepped into the hall, blinking like it was too bright. You came, she said. I told you I would. Then the alarm started blaring. We didn't have much time. The alarm screamed like a wounded animal. Red lights flashed above us. Somewhere below, heavy boots pounded against stone floors. Voices shouted, commands, threats, the language of people who'd trained for this moment. I grabbed Hannah's hand. We're going now. She hesitated just 1 second, looking back at the room. There are others. I know. We'll come back. But first, we survive this. Elise led the way, barefoot and fast, her fire extinguisher still clutched tight. We tore down the hallway, past locked doors and blinking cameras. Every door we passed had someone behind it, some reaching out, others too afraid to move. I know another way, Elise shouted over the alarm. Not the main gate. Follow me. Down 2 flights of stairs. Through a rusted maintenance corridor. Into a tunnel that smelled like mold and metal. The watcher wasn't dead. I saw his shadow behind us. Limping. Bleeding. Still smiling. Elise. I shouted. He's coming. She turned, eyes wild. Go. I'll slow him down. No. She shoved me forward. Get your sister out. That's what matters. Go. Then she disappeared back into the dark. I didn't want to leave her. But I ran. The tunnel spat us out behind the compound, into the trees, into the storm, into the night. Hannah collapsed in the mud, gasping, her hands shaking. I thought I'd never see Sky again, she whispered. I pulled her up. We're not done yet. The woods swallowed us. Branches tore at our clothes. Our breath came out in clouds. My phone had no signal. The car was nearly a mile down the mountain road. We're almost there, I said, even though I didn't know if that was true. Behind us, dogs started barking. Not just one. A pack. They use them to find runners, Hannah said. Her voice was hoarse. They'll catch us. No, I said. Not this time. I saw the river ahead. Swollen with rain. Fast. Furious. We jump, I said. What? They won't follow into the water. She hesitated. Hannah, I said. Trust me. She looked at me for 1 long second. Then nodded. We leapt together. The current hit us like a train. Cold slammed into my chest, tore the air from my lungs. We tumbled, spinning, choking, slamming into rocks. I lost her hand. Screamed her name. Got a mouthful of water. Then blackness. When I came to, I was face down in mud. The river behind me. The road ahead. And Hannah, coughing, alive beside me. We'd made it out. But it wasn't over. Because now, we had to expose them all. Hannah slept for 18 hours straight once we reached the motel. I watched over her the entire time, heart hammering at every shift in her breath. When she finally stirred, her first word was, "You stayed." I told you, I whispered, brushing her hair back. I'm not leaving you again. She nodded, eyes glassy, jaw set like she was holding back 1,000 screams. I made her tea, gave her my sweatshirt, turned on a cartoon just for noise. Then I opened my laptop. I had all of it, photos of the journal, recordings of Hastings, the documents from New Haven. And now, Hannah, a living witness. We spent the next day compiling it all. Every note she'd written, every memory she could scrape together. She cried when she talked about Elise, about the punishments, the cold showers, the days of silence where she was only allowed to speak in scripture. They call it healing, she said. But it's just punishment until you forget who you were. I posted everything. Names, files, audio. I uploaded the entire red journal, page by page. Then I sent it to every journalist I could think of, local, national, underground. Someone was going to see it. And someone did. Within 48 hours, a reporter from an independent outlet reached out. Then 2 more. Then a lawyer. By the end of the week, there were articles online titled things like "The House Where Time Stops," "One Woman's Escape from the Halcyon Network." Our inbox exploded. Hannah stayed quiet through it all. She didn't want her picture online. Didn't want her voice out there. Not yet. But she wrote something. A statement. Simple and raw. They told me I was broken. That my voice was dangerous. That my memories were poison. But my sister found me. And I am not lost anymore. We published it under a pseudonym. It went viral. And that's when the threats started. Emails. Messages. Comments. Some from strangers calling us liars. Some from people using names I recognized from the files. But the worst ones were anonymous. Be careful where you dig, Katie. Some graves bite back. The motel manager said someone had asked for our room number. A car followed us 2 towns over. My tires were slashed in a diner parking lot. But I wasn't scared. I was angry. Because they'd already taken 12 years from us. They weren't taking another damn thing. By week 3, it was no longer just internet noise. A state senator had requested a formal inquiry into Halcyon's funding. A former counselor reached out anonymously, offering to testify. Elise, God bless her, surfaced through a burner account, still in hiding, but alive. The pressure was building. But Halcyon didn't flinch. They released a carefully worded statement, called the allegations deeply troubling, but unsubstantiated. Claimed they were the target of a smear campaign led by unstable former clients and opportunistic agitators. Their words, not mine. I expected rage from Hannah when she read it. Instead, she laughed. I used to believe them, she said, staring out the motel window, that I was the one who was broken. But now I see it. They only call you unstable when they can't control you. We hired a lawyer. A real one. She was sharp as a blade and used to taking on Goliaths. She reviewed everything, journal entries, timestamps, emails, audio. This is a RICO case waiting to happen, she said, tapping the screen. We're talking interstate human rights violations. If we move right, they'll fold. I asked what that meant. It means we go loud. Real loud. So we did. We went on a podcast. One with 1 million followers. They disguised our voices and blurred our faces in the teaser clip. The host, an investigative journalist with a flair for truth bombs, asked us everything. And Hannah? She answered. Calm. Clear. Steady. They didn't want to fix us, she said, voice altered but unmistakable. They wanted to erase us. And they almost did. The episode aired on a Tuesday. By Thursday, it had 6 million views. By Friday, protesters stood outside Halcyon's headquarters with signs that read, Where is Hannah? And the River House is not a home. And then we got the message. Not a threat this time. A tip. From a burner email. 3 words. Check Pine Lake. There was no context. No signature. But something about it felt real. Pine Lake was 3 hours north. Middle of nowhere. Just a cabin community and a retired ranger's outpost. We left that night. Hannah was quiet the whole drive. When I asked what she was thinking, she just said, if Elise is hiding, she'd pick somewhere with water. When we arrived, the lake was still. Cold. Moonlit. There were 12 cabins. 10 were dark. 2 had lights on. We picked the one with the red curtain. Knocked. Waited. And the door opened. The woman who opened the door wasn't Elise. She was older. Weathered. Gray curls tucked into a knit cap. But her eyes, sharp, scanning, knowing, were unmistakable. She didn't speak at first. Just looked from me to Hannah. Then stepped aside. You'd better come in. The cabin was warm. Sparse. A fire in the hearth, old books stacked in the corners. Hannah stood frozen in the doorway until I touched her hand. She moved like someone who'd been dreaming too long and didn't trust what was real. The woman, she introduced herself as Grace, poured tea. No questions. No small talk. Just silence thick enough to drown in. Then she said she was here. Elise. I asked. Grace nodded. Left 2 days ago. Said if anyone came asking for her, they'd be the good kind or the dangerous kind. Which are we? I asked. Grace gave a tired smile. Still deciding. We stayed the night. Took turns sleeping. Hannah had nightmares, murmured words like flood room and scrub chair. I held her hand through all of it. The next morning, Grace handed me a letter. She left this. Said you might come. I opened it with shaking hands. Katie. I'm not ready to come back. But I see what you're doing. What Hannah's doing. And I believe in it. They didn't break us. They just slowed us down. When it's time, I'll add my voice. Until then, keep going. Keep screaming. They can't silence all of us. Hannah read it twice. Then she folded it and tucked it into her coat pocket like armor. We drove back to the city that day. Quiet. No music. Just miles of road and memory. The lawsuit moved forward. Depositions were scheduled. More survivors came forward, men and women, some who hadn't spoken in decades. We started a foundation named after Hannah. Its mission was simple. Find the lost. Fund the fight. Tell the truth. It's been a year now. Hannah lives with me. She paints, mostly rivers. Sometimes I catch her staring at the sky like it still surprises her that it's there. Some nights, she asks if I hate them, our parents. The doctors. The ones who watched and did nothing. I tell her the truth. No. Hate's too easy. What I feel is louder. She asks, what's louder than hate? Love, I say, and justice. And when she smiles now, it's real, fragile, fierce, like someone who survived a war and came home carrying both the scars and the flag. Because Hannah didn't vanish. She was taken. And now, she's back.